Hey guys, it's Sarah and I'm sick. Can you tell? I feel like, you know how you get a head cold and you can hear yourself talking and you're like, oh, that you sound terrible. So hopefully I don't sound too terrible on camera. I don't really know. But it's time for my end of the month / beginning of the month videos. So I gotta get it done. This is kind of the only day I can do it. But today I'm going to be sharing my August wrap up. And August was a pretty good month. I was actually surprised. I ended up reading 13 books and a lot of them were actually pretty good. I had a lot of 4 or 5-star reads, and I also had a few 3-star reads, and then I had 2 DNFs. Okay, so let's start with these books. The first one that I read is I've Got Your Number by Sophie Kinsella. And I really actually enjoyed this book. I thought it was just going to be like a middle of the road, maybe a 3-star read. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. The audiobook is fantastic. I really like Sophie Kinsella's books on audio. She has a great narrator, and I believe the same person narrates all of them. But this follows a man and a woman who live in London, I believe, actually end up meeting in a very strange way. So the woman is engaged. She ends up losing her engagement ring in the very beginning of the book. And in the scramble, she's trying to find her ring, and she's lost her cell phone as well. So she's feeling really lost. She ends up finding an abandoned cell phone in a trash can. However, it's still working. So she ends up using this cell phone and using this phone number to try to get a hold of people and track people down to find her ring. She ends up giving the cell phone number to the people at the hotel where she lost it. So it was kind of her only way for other people to get in touch with her about her ring. So she didn't want to give up the cell phone. However, she gets a phone call on it from the person whose company the phone belongs to. So he's trying to convince her to give the phone back because it doesn't belong to her. However, she needs it. So you kind of follow the story along from there, and lots of drama in normal Sophie Kinsella fashion. But I really like the banter between these two characters. I really liked how their relationship kind of blossomed, and it was mainly through text messaging. So it was very interesting, and the characters were pretty complex. I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I gave this one 4 stars. The next one I read is A Long Way Gone by Ishmael, and this one I also listened to on audiobook. This is a nonfiction book about Ishmael's time living and growing up in Africa, and he was actually trained to be a boy soldier over there. And he eventually made his way over to America and kind of escaped that lifestyle and is doing very, very well over here. So this one, I wanted a little bit more from it. It didn't feel like a complete story to me because when it ended with him just coming to America, and it wasn't for good. It was only to be a speaker at an event about his time in Africa. So it wasn't his, full transition of coming over to America. And that's what I was wanting from this book, and I didn't really get that. I think that would have been a very complex story and had a lot more meaning to it, I think. But this was mainly just his time in Africa. And I listened to this on audiobook as well, and it wasn't the best. It was read by the author, but it was very monotone, and so it was kind of, it was a little bit of a chore. So I wanted just a little bit more. At the same time, I still think this book is important, and it still is a very heartbreaking story and talks about a lot of the realities that we don't see here in America of these children growing up in Africa. We see what the news wants us to see. And it was very interesting that way. So I did give this one 3 stars. It just still wasn't my favorite. This next one is a book that I read for review, and I do have a full review video up for it, so I will leave that link down below if you guys want to go check it out. But that is The Luster of Lost Things by Sophie Keller, and this one is a magical realism book that follows a young boy who lives in a bakery with his mother. They own the bakery, and there is a magical element to this bakery that kind of keeps it going and makes it very popular, until one day the object that makes this bakery have its magic gets stolen. So this young boy actually is going around New York City trying to figure out where this object is, and he has a very keen sense of being able to find things that have been lost or stolen. And so he's trying to use his abilities to find this thing so he can save his bakery, because his bakery is in jeopardy of being closed down because of this. I enjoyed this book. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. And only because I wanted more of the magical part of it. The only real magic was, inside the bakery, obviously, but I don't know, I just wanted a little bit more. I wish it was woven a little bit more throughout the entire story. And when he went out into New York City and was trying to find this thing, he was coming across a whole bunch of different people, which was a little bit interesting, but I found myself getting a little bit bored in those parts, and that should have been, you know, the big adventure part of it. But I enjoyed the bakery part more than anything. So that's kind of why I gave it 3.5 stars, because I feel like the part I was supposed to enjoy the most, I didn't. It was a little bit flipped for me. But it was still good. I still really liked it. So 3.5 stars. The next book that I finished was City of Thieves by David Benioff, and this one I also listened to on audiobook. The audiobook is fantastic. I highly recommend that. And this one is a World War II historical fiction about 2 boys living in Russia, and they are sent on this mission from a high-ranking colonel to find a dozen eggs to bring back so that there can be a wedding cake made for his daughter's wedding. And during this time period, any type of food is scarce, you know, let alone trying to find a dozen eggs. It's really, really hard. So he sends these 2 boys out and kind of makes that their mission. So this one was interesting. I gave this one 3.5 stars as well, and a lot of it is because the audiobook was so good. But it was very, I don't know, it was slow and then good, and then slow and then good. So it was a little bit of a roller coaster that way. And I wanted a little bit more from these characters. I liked the characters, but we didn't get a whole lot else about them except what's in here. We didn't get a lot of backstory. Got a little bit here and there, but it didn't really go deep into it. So I had a hard time really connecting with them. And there were some pretty funny parts in here as well, which was really surprising. There was also a lot of sexual things in here, which was really surprising. I didn't expect it to have a lot of sexual content or a sexual like hints and, you know, talk. But it was still good. Yeah, so 3.5 stars. The next book that I finished is See What I Have Done, and this is written by Sarah Schmidt. And this one, okay, I was really excited for this one because the cover. Can we talk about the cover? How beautiful is it? Like, to the point where I want to buy this book because of the cover. And now that I've read it and I enjoyed it, I want to eventually try to get my hands on a finished copy of it. That might be like a book outlet thing I look for. But this one is actually was surprising because I did not realize that the main character in this book was an actual person. This is not a nonfiction. It's a fiction story, but it's based on an actual person in history. And I didn't know that. And now I'm kind of like really interested in her and wanting to find out more about her. So this book follows Lizzie Borden. And Lizzie Borden was a woman who lived in the early 1900s in Boston, I believe. And she lived in a house with her family and her father and her stepmother and her sister. Lizzie was a very complex person, like borderline psychopath. She did a lot of questionable things. She said a lot of really mean things to a lot of people. And then one day her father ends up being brutally murdered with an axe, and she was charged for it, but she was also acquitted. But it's still like that murder was never solved, but it's very likely that she did it, and she ended up getting off. And she ended up living like well into her 60s, I think. But this was very, very interesting. So I believe that this is just a historical fiction based on her, but you know, most of the actual story kind of follows along the timeline of what actually did happen, but a lot of it was made up, obviously. But it was very, very interesting. And I did spend a lot of the book wondering who killed her father, because there were a couple of different suspects it could have been. And then she ended up being the primary suspect. And I kind of went, yeah, I think she did that. I think that's the thing that happened. And yeah, it was very interesting. And then upon more research about her, I found out that her house, the house where it happened, is actually now a bed and breakfast. And you can go, and it's like the Lizzie Borden theme. It's, you know, you're supposed to go and like kind of learn more about her and actually stay in the house where it happened. There have also been a number of TV shows and miniseries and movies made about her and the whole situation. So I'm getting a little interested in trying to find out more, but this is one that I think I might actually even reread one day just to kind of read it again with a little bit of a newer perspective on it if I do some more research on her and then read it again and see what I think. So this will be one that I think I will pick up a physical copy of when I can find it for cheap, like on Book Outlet or something. But yeah, I really liked it. It was a 4-star read for me. The next one that I finished is Sleeping Arrangements by Madeline Wickham, and Madeline Wickham also writes under Sophie Kinsella, so I read 2 of her books this month. This is another one that I listened to on audiobook, and I enjoyed this one more than I thought I would. I thought this was going to be like maybe 3 stars, could even go down to 2. I just wasn't sure. But I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really, really liked it. This one follows 2 families who go on a vacation in Spain, and they are accidentally double booked at a friend's villa in Spain for their holiday. Neither one wants to give it up because they both need it. So they end up sharing this villa for a week in Spain. And as it turns out, these 2 families have an unknown connection, and that is realized as the story goes on. I really liked it. I thought there was a good amount of drama in it, and I really liked the characters a lot. There were a few things in here that I was like, you know, and the way it ended was a little bit interesting. Not everything, it wasn't like a big blow up and, you know, everything was out in the open. It wasn't anything like that. So I kind of wish that it had been like that. So that's why I gave it 4 stars instead of 5. But it was still really good. I really enjoyed it. All right, guys, the next one that I read, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. All right. I gave this one 4 stars. I am one of the people who really enjoyed it. There seems to be a really enjoyed it and a really despised it and wish it never happened and wish they never read it. I really enjoyed it. And I think part of that is because I haven't read the ending of Harry Potter since it first came out. I'm currently rereading the series with my daughter, so it's my first reread going through, but we're only on, you know, we're waiting for book number 3 right now to come out in the illustrated editions in order to read that one. So I'm still kind of in the beginning stages of the first Harry Potter books. And I think if I had like read the entire series and then read this right away, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much. But you have to be able to separate this from the original Harry Potter, because this is not the original Harry Potter, and it's not supposed to be. This is not someone else trying to be J.K. Rowling. It's not. It is definitely, it has our favorite characters in it. It has, you know, Harry and Ron and Hermione, and even some of the older characters in it as well. But it's them 20 years into the future, and you have to remember 20 years is a long time, and that changes people. People change. So you're seeing them deal with parenthood, number one, and that's really hard on anybody, and that changes everybody. You know, you change when you become a parent. It makes you a different person. And so you're seeing that, and you're seeing Harry deal with a very difficult teenager, and he gets angry, and he does, and I think all parents do. I guess I just reacted to it differently. Maybe because I am a parent. And I have seen people who read this and hated it and said because they didn't like Harry and the way he was changed, but they also weren't parents. So I think, you know, in me seeing myself and being a parent to my kids who are still young, my kids are only 9 and 6, but I do find myself acting a little bit the way that Harry does sometimes. You know, I catch myself acting like that. And so it's a struggle. It really is. And I think I can relate to Harry in this one because of that. So that may just not only make sense to me. I don't know. But I think that is a big part of it, because Harry is a lot different in here than he is in the original series. But it's 20 years later, and he's a parent, and he has a very difficult teenager. This kid, I wanted to smack him. But I still really enjoyed the story. I thought it was interesting. The only thing I didn't love about it is that since this was a play and it's a very constricted amount of time, it's hard to have a story that takes you on an adventure in such a small amount of time. That's hard to do. So it did feel a little bit rushed in some areas, understandably, because this covers like 3 or 4 years in this, and it's like a 3-hour play. So there is that. But at the same time, I still really enjoyed it. I thought it was unique. I thought it was a different take on it. And yeah, I'm glad I didn't like start from the beginning of Harry Potter and read all the way through and then end with this, because I think I would have been a little bit more disappointed in it that way. But You just have to be able to separate them, basically, if you want to enjoy it. And if you can't do that, you're not going to enjoy it. So fair warning, but I gave it 4 stars. The next book that I finished is Sold, and this is by Patricia McCormick. I don't have my physical copy because I let a friend borrow it. She saw that I read it and asked if she could borrow that. So she has it right now. But this one is following a young girl who is 13, and you are seeing the entire transaction of her being sold by her family into the sex slave trade. And it was incredibly powerful and incredibly sad. This is another one that I listened to on audiobook, and the audiobook is great. I really enjoyed it. And it was just very, very sad. It just really was, because just knowing that these things actually happen and the research that it took to write this, I don't even want to know what she had to witness in order to be able to even, you know, begin to tell the story. But just the things that these young girls go through, and they are so young, they are literally robbed of their childhood. They really are. They're not allowed to be children. And they are really brainwashed to think that this is okay, and to think that this is normal, and to disengage themselves to the point where, you know, they're able to perform these acts for these disgusting men. And it's hard. It's a hard read. But at the same time, I think it's also important because we need to be aware of these things and how we can help. And just knowing how many girls this happens to is sickening. It really, really is. And just the lies that they're fed in order to justify what they're doing is sad. Very powerful. I did give it 4 stars, and it just, yeah. It's a hard one, but it's still good. Okay, this next one, guys, will most likely be on my top 10 list of this year. November 9 by Colleen Hoover. Oh, I loved this. I really did. I flew through it really quickly, and I just was on a roller coaster of emotions on this one. This one hit me in just like 5 different spots at once. So it follows Fallon and Ben, and Fallon is the daughter of a very well-known TV actor back in his day. He's a little bit washed up now, but he had kind of a really big hit TV series, you know, a while ago, and he's still kind of living on that fame. And Fallon ends up being in an accident involving a fire, which caused her to have a lot of burns on her body. So she has a lot of scars. And she ends up meeting this boy named Ben, and they meet in a restaurant. I want to say insta-love, but not really. It was instant connection for sure. The love kind of develops over time. But they end up meeting on November 9th. And it's literally the day that she is leaving to move to New York. She wants a change in her life. She wants to go follow her dreams. So she's leaving LA and moving to New York on the day that they meet. They end up spending the entire day together. He takes her to the airport, all this stuff. They make an agreement to start meeting on November 9th for the next, I believe, 5 years. Kind of having that standing date where they meet up no matter where they are, no matter what they're doing in their lives. They're going to meet up on that day and spend the day together and kind of catch up because they have this instant connection. And every day in here is on November 9th for the following year. So you're seeing their relationship not only grow, but they're also see how they grow apart from each other, which is very interesting. And they make a pact not to have any kind of contact throughout the year. It's only November 9th. They don't have each other's phone numbers. They don't have emails. They don't have Facebook. They don't do anything like that with each other. It's only on November 9th, and that's it. It was very, very interesting. I was so up and down with Fallon in this book because I, was just a big fan of her. And then she did something stupid. I was like, what are you doing? What is wrong with you? And then she was fine again. And then she was stupid again. I was just like, what is going on? And I don't know. It was just so good. It was so good. And this book, you guys, made me cry. And I have not cried in a book in years. Years. It's been at least probably 3 or 4 years since I've cried in a book. And this one got me. So good. It was really good. I think it's my favorite Colleen Hoover book as of right now. I haven't read them all yet, but right now this is standing number 1. It's fantastic. 5 stars, obviously. And then I read a book on my Kindle called Brutal Game, and this is by Kara McKenna. And this book is the sequel to a book that I read a few years ago by her that I really liked, and it was called Willing Victim. And this one is an adult erotica, so very, very adult content. Not going to be for everybody. This one follows our characters, Laurel and Flynn, and they develop a relationship in the first book, and then this one is kind of the follow-up to that. They're in their relationship and you're kind of seeing it go from there. And I really liked it. They're short books. This one I think was 166 pages, so they're not like, you know, big huge novels or anything, but they're good and I like the story. I ended up giving this one 4 stars, and yeah, it was good. Not a whole lot to talk about, honestly, but I do like Kara McKenna as an author. I think she's great. Okay, the next book that I finished is What She Ate, and this is written by Laura Shapiro. I do have a full review for this one up as well because this was sent to me by the publishers. And this one is a compilation of 6 short stories about women in our history and how food kind of affected their lives and the role that food took in their lives. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. It was just okay for me. I liked about half of the books in here, or half of the stories in here. My favorite was Eleanor Roosevelt, and then the very last story in here, if you saw my review, I did not finish the last story, and I will not finish the last story. The woman drove me crazy. But yeah, it was fine. It wasn't my favorite. I'm kind of realizing I'm not really big on anthologies. It has to be like something I'm really, really super interested in. So yeah, I don't know, but it was fine. And the next one I finished was another one on my Kindle, and it is a novella that is part of a dystopian series that I have started and really enjoyed. And that is called Before Tomorrow, and this is written by Pintip Dunn. And this is kind of the prequel book to the first book in the series, which is called Forget Tomorrow. And yeah, it's a dystopian series, like I said, and it just follows 2 teenagers who are on the run from their government. And this actually has to do with their memories. So when they turn 17, they end up they go into like this big machine, and it's like a big brain study type thing, and they get a memory from their future. And that kind of determines what their whole life is going to be. Some people get, you know, I'm going to be a championship swimmer, or I'm going to be a successful doctor, or, you know, I'm going to be a writer or whatever. And then some people get, I'm going to break the law. I'm going to take a life. I'm going to do this. And in order to kind of filter out the bad things, the government is using those memories against these kids and saying, you're going to take a life. We're going to put you away, so you can't do that. We're going to prevent that from happening. And so our main character gets a pretty bad memory, and she's on the run because she doesn't want to be locked up. She's kind of figuring out exactly what's going on. So that's kind of the gist of the series. I've only read the first book, like I said, and then I read this novella. There are 2 more books. I do have them, and I do want to go ahead and finish it up because it is a trilogy. So yeah, but I enjoyed it. I gave the novella 4 stars. Okay, guys, the last one that I finished in the month of August was The Fact of a Body, and this is written by Alexandria Marzano-Lesnevich. This book, you guys, is easily one of the most interesting books I've ever read. This is a nonfiction book, and it follows the true crime of the murder of a 6-year-old boy. He was murdered by a pedophile named Ricky Langley, and Ricky Langley did this, I believe back in the 90s, early 90s, he killed the 6-year-old boy. So what this book does is it not only follows the murder and the trial, but it follows Ricky's childhood growing up. It also follows the author's personal childhood and kind of going through all this stuff, because her life and his life have some very similar parallels. Similar things were going on in their lives, and it really made her question a lot of things about herself. So Alexandria attended law school, and during her time in law school, she had to go kind of do like an internship somewhere. She chose to go to a law firm in Louisiana, and that law firm had just finished a retrial for Ricky Langley, because when he was first put on trial, he was given the death penalty. And now we are in a spot where the death penalty does not come up very often. It's being battled a lot, and there's a lot of people especially in the legal system, who are against the death penalty. Alexandria considers herself against the death penalty. So she hears about this case, goes through everything, and is trying, it really like weighs a big weight on her conscience because she is seeing this man, seeing what he did to this boy, seeing what he did to many children, and thinking, I don't know if I'm against the death penalty anymore. I kind of want this man to die. So it really, really challenges her beliefs, and she just ends up going really deep into Ricky's and his life and his psyche and all that. And then all the while, we're also getting things about her and why she's feeling this way and things that happened to her that are causing her to feel this way. It was so interesting. I was definitely more interested in Ricky's story than in the author's, only because her life was very complex. She had a lot of things happening in her life. She made a lot of decisions that I didn't understand too, which I guess I don't really have to understand it, but I don't know. I was more invested in Ricky's story, and the thing that really got me is at one point I found myself feeling empathy for him, for Ricky, for a child molester. I felt bad for him because when he started to kind of realize that he was having these desires towards children and he couldn't control them and he didn't know how to stop them, he knew it was wrong. He didn't grow up or become this thing thinking it was normal. He knew it wasn't okay. And he tried to get help. He reached out and practically begged for help from psychiatrists and from help centers and from, he tried to check himself in and saying, I want to do these really bad things to children and I don't know how to stop it. I need help. I need to be locked away. And people would not take him seriously. No one would take him seriously. They would tell him he needed like an hour of outpatient therapy a week. No, that does not help this man. I don't understand how you can seriously sit there and listen to the things that he's telling you and confessing to you and not think that this is not a dangerous person and he should never be around children. It made 100% no sense to me. And I kind of wish that people like that who don't take these things seriously and don't take any extra steps to help him or to get him off the streets and to keep him away from children, I feel like they should carry some of this blame. I really, really do. Because no, they're not physically doing anything, but they're also not, they're letting him do this, basically, like it's such a sickness, and get him the help that he needs. If he needs to be locked up, lock him up. I'm sorry. Like this 6-year-old's death could have been prevented, and kills me. Okay. Obviously, I felt a lot in this one. And it was very, very easily one of the most interesting books I've ever read. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And it did take me a little bit of time to get through it. I kind of took the entire month, but it was so interesting. I really, really enjoyed it. So I highly, highly recommend it, especially if you like true crime. This is definitely one of the best ones I've read so far. I don't read a lot of true crime, but I want to get into some more of it. So this one was a great start for sure. And I really, really liked it. It was fantastic. So I definitely highly recommend. It was a 5-star read for me. And yeah, just so good. Also, I read this for the book club that I'm in for Lisa's Buddy Reads. So if you guys want to check that out, I will leave her Goodreads page down below, but we've been reading 2 books a month. I've been kind of choosing one book each month and reading it along with them, and it's fantastic. There's lots of good discussions in there, and this one had really good discussions because we were all kind of feeling the same things. And so it's a really great book club group if you guys are interested in that. So I will leave that link down below. Okay, and there are 2 books this month that I ended up DNFing because I tried. So the first one was Dreamland by Sarah Dessen. I got halfway through this book and I did not care. I found myself rolling my eyes a lot and it was very tropey. This girl is a teenager and her older sister goes missing, but she's not really missing. She just ran off to live with her boyfriend, and everyone eventually finds out where she is, and it's like no big deal. And so this girl is left at home, and she meets a bad boy, and is just making stupid decisions for no reason. She's creating all this drama in her head when it's not really drama, and I could not stand it. I thought it was so stupid. So, I DNF'd it. I'm not going to finish this. I'm getting rid of it. Like, and I don't know about Sarah Dessen here on out. I don't know if I'm going to continue to read from her or not. It'd have to be like something mind-blowing. And then the second book that I DNF'd is First Comes Love by Emily Giffin. And this one was a part of a new series that I'm starting on my channel, and I will leave that video link down below if you guys want to go and check it out. But basically, I was going to read one more book from Emily Giffin because I was unsure about her as an author. I was going to give one more book a try and see what I think, if I want to continue with her or not. And since I DNF'd it, I decided not to continue with Emily Giffin. But I do have a full video down below kind of showing you the books that I had and what I'm doing with them, and it's a whole thing. So if you guys want to check that out, go ahead and check that out. I posted that earlier this week. But yeah, so I did not enjoy this book at all. The characters drove me crazy, and they were just, again, doing stupid things. And I was like, what are you doing? It's not even like, what are you doing? This is fantastic. It was, what are you doing? This is stupid. So DNF'd that one as well. Okay, guys, that's it. So that is a lot of books for the month of August. I was really surprised by how much I was able to end up reading, but really, really happy with it as well. So I read some pretty good ones in here, and a couple of them are probably going to end up on my top 10 list of this year. So that's really good. All right, that's going to be it for me. Please let me know down below if you guys have read any of these books and what you thought, and what did you guys read for the month of August? What was your favorite? What was your least favorite? All that good stuff. And I will be back tomorrow with my September TBR. I'll talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day. Bye.